Well, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It might be evening. I know we have some people joining us from the UK, and it's 5 o'clock there. So hello, welcome to everyone. We're so excited to have you here today. Welcome to 7 ways to bolster your career that you may have never thought of. And first off, I'd like to welcome all the panel members. So there are 6 other career colleagues on the panel today with me, and I'll mention their names in just a second. But we all, on behalf of all of our panel members, I would like to welcome you, our audience, and really thank you so much for being here today. We had an overwhelming response. We had almost 200, maybe more. The last time I checked was Wednesday morning. And it's a great response. I think mostly women signed up for this, which is great because this was an event for women by women. But I did see a couple of other names of men on the registration. So welcome to everyone. And let me mention the panel members. Ruth Winden is from across the pond and has already celebrated today at a different event that she was running. We have Michelle Carroll and Lynn Carroll, though they are not related. We have Karen Chopra, Sherazad Aristay, Ilana Levin Topit, and me. I think I got everyone. Did I miss anyone? I don't think so. So we got together as a team and we decided to run this event. We wanted to find a fun and convenient way for us to share some career tips for women to empower them in their careers. And this is what we came up with. It's a bit of an experiment, so we'd love to hear what you think of it when it's all said and done. As I mentioned, we've had a great response. So thanks to everyone for signing up. I also know we have a lot of career colleagues that aren't necessarily on the panel, but are in the room, so to speak, in our virtual room. And we welcome everyone's input. So, and I have to mention that my mom, and I think my sister is actually, one of my sisters is also on this Zoom call. So I really appreciate the sisterhood all around. Let me describe our format very quickly. We have 7 career experts, and before each person speaks, I will give a quick bio. Then each person will speak for 2 minutes, and then we'll have 5 minutes of discussion, which will mainly be through the chat because we are recording this. We're trying to keep it a clean recording, so we're asking people to communicate through the chat box rather than verbally. Okay, and a couple of housekeeping items. We will be keeping a timer, so you might hear my timer ding, and that's really just because we have an ambitious agenda, so we're trying to keep ourselves accountable. As mentioned already, Karen Chopra is the Zoom host, which means if you write in the chat box to the host, only Karen will see it. She doesn't need to say your name, and if you want to write something more personal and you only want the host to see it, that's fine. However, if you write to everyone, when you look in the chat box, you'll see you have a choice. Its default is to everyone, but the drop-down box, you could actually write to anyone else on the Zoom directly. Michelle Carroll is going to keep an eye on, and I think all of us will keep an eye on the chat box, so you may get a response from any of us. But Karen, as I mentioned, will only see it if you write privately. If you write to everyone, then actually everyone who's looking in the chat box can see it. And that can be helpful just to keep the conversation going and letting us know. If you haven't already told us where you are located right now, feel free to put that in the chat box because it will be fun to see the various locations around the world where people are joining us from. For troubleshooting, if you are having trouble with your sound, just one thing is check if you have earphones. They usually have a separate volume. Make sure your computer's not muted or your phone volume isn't very low. If all else fails, I would say log out and log back in is usually the best solution. And if you are following us on a phone and you do want to involve yourself in the chat box, it's a little different. On the computer, it's pretty visible. Your chat box, if you scroll your mouse to the bottom of the page, you'll see some choices at the bottom. One of them is chat. If you're on a phone, look for the word participants, click on that, and you'll see 3 little dots. And when you click on the 3 little dots, you'll get a choice to see the chat box. We will be sending a recording of this afterwards to everyone who registered. So they don't have to worry about taking notes and things like that. You will get a copy of the recording, and the slides are a part of the recording. So I think that covers everything for housekeeping and the format. I will ask my expert panel if there's anything I missed. And if not, I just want to mention a couple quick things before we jump into the specific content. One is that while we have 7 distinctly different career topics that we're talking about today, I'm sure that you will see themes among them. And the other thing is that some of the things we're talking about, you actually may have already thought of. And if that's the case, then kudos to you. I'm sure many of our career colleagues on the call have thought of these ideas before, and maybe some of you have as well. I know that I've learned in the career space that common sense isn't always common to everyone. And so I find there's a lot of confusion around careers, which is normal because we don't learn it really much in school. And a lot of times in our home, we don't learn it. I had a unique situation that my father was an executive recruiter. So at a young age, I had to have a resume ready throughout my life, but I know that that's not really common for most people. So please feel free to ask any questions through the chat box. At any point, we may wait till the 5-minute point for the discussion to actually read it and use it in the discussion, but feel free to write it when it's on top of your mind. My topic is lifelong learning. And first I'll introduce myself and then go into my topic. As you may know, my name is Paula Brand, and I am a global career coach, a LinkedIn expert, and a trainer with Brand Career Management. And as I might have mentioned already, I'm super passionate about empowering mid-career to executive women, which was part of the inspiration of creating today's event. I'm in Annapolis, but I see clients worldwide. With that, I will jump into my topic. And I know that lifelong learning is something we're all hearing a lot about lately, and I'm sure that everyone on the panel would agree that if you're not learning something new these days, you're going to fall behind. Every job, no matter what field, no matter what type of job, is going to involve learning new things. So don't be afraid to learn new things, seek out ways to learn new things, seek out expertise from people you know. I learned just about everything I know from salary negotiation from Karen Chopra, who is up next. So look at the resources around you and take advantage of them. But equally important to learning new things is unlearning things. And that might be a term you've heard of. It might be new to you, the concept, but it's pretty hot also. Equally as hot as lifelong learning is unlearning. And think about things that outdated practices, not non-productive habits, and things, maybe even theories change for your field. I know in the career field, you get new theories and some theories become outdated. So don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to unlearn. And when you're trying to learn new things, I really caution you to not just jump into the additional degree syndrome. I find so many people come to me for career counseling, and one of their biggest questions is, I'm thinking about getting another degree. And then when I ask, well, what's the end game? They don't really have an answer. And I think that degrees are just way too much time and money right now to jump into it without a good game plan. So I think it's really important to do your research, talk to people who do that job, and find out how many of them actually have the degree you're considering. Ask the school what types of jobs people get when they finish that degree. But mostly just really consider other alternate forms of learning, like certifications, because in a field like IT, certifications and experience is certainly equal, if not more valued sometimes than any bachelor's degree, whether it's in English or in information sciences. My third tip is know your best learning style. We all learn differently. Some of us better by video, some of us better by books, some of us best by hands-on application. So know the best way for you to learn and take action using those methods. Also, think about the best time of day to learn. I know that sometimes we don't have a lot of choice about, well, we do have choices, and people are going to talk about that later. But my point is that sometimes you have a lot of things going on in your life, and it's very hard to find the time to make the time. So think about, is 11 o'clock the best thing for you because you're a night owl and it's when all the kids are in bed? Or if I read at 11 o'clock at night, I would probably have to reread it all the next day because it would be mush the next day. So think about your best times, your best methods. And my last tip is to stay in the know, but have fun with it. And what I mean by that is learn things that don't have to do with your career. I'm a total nerd, and most of the books I read are actually about careers. But I also have explored other things. I love flowers. And so I have gotten into gardening and I've joined my local garden club. And I might even consider getting a master's, what is it called? A master gardener certification. And none of this has to do with careers, but interestingly enough, I found connections. And I think you'll find the same, that when you explore other curiosities that you have, you will actually find connections and ways to apply it to the work that you do. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go further into that, but you see the asters behind me. So I'll just give you a hint that I have found a fun way to meld my career work and my love of flowers. And I would ask those of you who are able to work to use the chat box, what is something that you need to learn? And what is something you need to unlearn? And you can type learn hyphen new software. You could type unlearn hyphen old software. If you need to, you can unmute yourself real quickly. I am going to start the timer, or I'm going to actually ask Alana, since she was timing me for 2 minutes, if you could set the timer right now for 4 minutes. And that will be the amount of time we have to discuss this before I introduce Karen Chopra. I'm going to look at the chat box very quickly and just see if anyone's, so someone wrote learn to manage up. Yes, that is if that's something that needs to be done, that is important. Karen said need to get better at PowerPoint presentations, and you're taking a course, although I have to say you're hosting us and moving the PowerPoint presentation quite nicely. So,
but it is the design of the PowerPoints that is the challenge.
Understood. And thankfully, Alana was gracious enough to share the resource of her graphic designer to make the slides. So everyone really pitched in, and it was a great team effort to put this event together today.
So Paula, and monitoring the chat, somebody, Rachel said, you know, unlearn the habit of underestimating what you can do. And yes. I think that unlearn, several people said unlearn is a really neat concept out of this. So unlearn fears. Yeah, we're starting to see a theme. Yep. Unlearn all those negative scripts that you've got running in your head.
Paula, can you talk a little bit about how one can go about unlearning something? Because when we have such habits, right, and we learn things throughout our lifetime, how do you think we can unlearn?
I think one way, and there's probably many ways, but one way that I've heard of that I think has been successful is to replace it with a more positive thing to learn. So if you're trying to unlearn software, you might be teaching yourself the new software at the same time. Or if it's that bad habit, you might replace it. You know, if it's not eating ice cream, you might say every time I eat ice cream, I will eat an apple. So sometimes replacing the thing that you want to unlearn with something that you do want to learn. But in some cases that might not apply. So just being more disciplined and questioning things. Like in one of my contract jobs right now, we got a new software program and I still have to unlearn the other software program to some extent and remember what was useful from it and how it can be applied to the new one. But I really still have to unlearn and let go of the old software program. So maybe that helps, Alana. And yeah, Alana just said, believe in ourselves that we can unlearn, because we can. We all can. There's a lot of chats here, so I'm hoping that those of you who can, I'm assuming the chat box has fixed itself because suddenly there's lots of chats.
In, so.
Okay. How are we doing on time, Alana?
We have 1 more minute for this topic, and I just want to mention that what I'm seeing over and over again in this chat is about imposter syndrome. I'll be mentioning it too, but as we talked about today's program, we really put this high on the agenda for next year, possibly as a topic, because I think so many women do struggle with that. And it's very interesting to think about the idea of learning in terms of feeling like an imposter or not an imposter. So I really appreciate that connection between Paula's topic and the idea of being an imposter syndrome.
Yes, and there's something in the chat. Tracy reminds us that mindfulness is a good way to unlearn, right? It's a nice way to tune in.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. That is excellent and another good option. Okay, so Karen Chopra is up next, and she's going to talk about negotiations, which is very appropriate because her first career was with the State Department as a negotiator. Now she is a career counselor based in Washington, D.C., and serving clients across the country and around the globe. Her specialties are negotiations and executive development. And I'm going to turn it over to her now, and I'm going to start my 2-minute timer.
Thank you, Paula. And welcome, everybody. It's really exciting. We put this event together. Paula was the leading light on this, so kudos to Paula. But all these women from all over the country, and Ruth is in the UK, came together to make this happen. And we did not waste endless hours on this. We were really efficient about it. And I think that's one of the things that women are particularly good at, which is I only have this much time. How much can I eke out of this time that I have to devote to this task? So as Paula said, negotiation is my specialty. I used to be a trade negotiator, and I love all things negotiation in the workplace, salary negotiations, workplace negotiations, any negotiation just gets my juices flowing. So the tip that I want to give everybody for today is when you think you are facing a choice and you are struggling to make a choice, the chances are good that what you're really looking at is a negotiation. And so instead of struggling to decide on, oh, I'll take option A, even though it's not really making me very happy, but option B also has some problems, the negotiation is about, well, can I create option A plus or option B minus or even option C or option D? And I'll give you a concrete example from a client's experience. She was working in a decent sized organization and was reached out to by a different department saying, we need your skill set here. We are urgently up against the wall. Would you please come and take this position over here? Mostly a lateral move, a slightly more high profile product, but not significantly more higher profile than the area that she was working on. And she was coming to me going, my mentors are telling me to take one for the team. It's good exposure. I should do this. So she was talking to her mentors, which I think was important. But she said, I'm not feeling it. Like, it's more work. It's a different schedule that I really don't like. I'm not learning a whole lot new. I'm bringing my skill set to them. So I will be teaching, but not necessarily learning new things. I'm just really necessary at this moment. And so we started talking about, well, what would make it easier to make a decision one way or the other? And she said, look, if they were going to give me a promotion, if they would increase my title and also increase my salary in recognition that I'm making a sacrifice for the organization, she said, it would make me feel better about making that move. So we talked about how to set up that negotiation, and off she went. She did not get every single dime that she was looking for out of that transition, but she did get the increase, the higher level title that she was looking for, the new pay band, and a higher salary. And all of a sudden it got a lot easier to say, okay, then I will move to the new position and take one for the team. So whenever you're agonizing, whenever a client's like, oh, I don't know, A, B, like, okay, let's stop struggling between this binary choice. Who says it's a binary choice? Is there something that would make this an easier choice to make? And can you go negotiate for that? So excellent. What I'm encouraging everybody to do is whenever you are faced with a choice in your career and you're not really happy about it, sit back and go, what's the negotiation that's underlying this that could make this choice an easier one to make? And with that, I will finish up and I will open it up for the chat and questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karen. And I'm going to set the timer for the chat and discussions. I'm going to make it actually a little shorter since we had some delays earlier. So let's.
That's all right.
Okay. Excellent. So
Karen,
chime
can I
in.
ask a quick question about do women struggle differently with negotiation than men?
I think overall that is true. There is some evidence. There's a fascinating article in the New York, I think it was the New York Times recently or somewhere online, that more than 50% of women will look for a new job rather than ask for a raise, which I think is crazy. If you're ready to go look for a new job, you've got some leverage there. Go ahead and ask for a raise. So I think women are uncomfortable with the notion of being difficult. And the thing that I would say is, as long as you are clear about what you want and you are non-defensive and open and sort of you have that relaxed body language and you smile when appropriate, there's a lot that you can push and ask for without triggering that sense of, oh, she's not likable or she's too aggressive. The truth of the matter is, ladies, and sorry guys who are on the call, the truth of the matter is that we cannot lose sort of that connection to the feminine when we are negotiating. But as long as we negotiate from sort of that stereotype of us, we can ask for whatever we want. So what I tell my clients is, it's not what you ask for, it is how you ask for it. Please ask for everything you want. Just think about how you are going to couch it as a woman. And
we do have some chats here. Linda Era is saying that sometimes the negotiation is actually with ourselves, and I think.
Oh, all right, ladies, do we not know this? The negotiation is almost always with ourselves first, right? And I do encourage people to realize that. Am I negotiating with myself, or am I setting up a negotiation with someone else? So excellent point, Linda.
Right, and thanks for all the comments from Elizabeth and Michelle. A lot of people are really connecting with what you're saying, Karen. Are there any people writing privately to you?
Not that I saw. It's all in the public chat.
Okay, great. I think in the essence of time, I'm not going to read all of the chats. We'll try to summarize them for people who, obviously, this is a recording, so if someone's watching this in 2 months, they won't see the chat. So just kind of bringing it into it as much as we can. Since people haven't written more, I will just address some of them. Michelle said, I love the tip to understand that when you have a difficult decision, it may be a negotiation. I think what Karen's saying is it's always a negotiation. We just look at it as a decision. And Amy said she appreciates the comment that we're bringing our skills to the table and that this deserves compensation. And it's true.
Yes.
Yep. And Elizabeth said, as we see the options as expressions of what the organization and the client really wants, we can respond to those needs with unique and customized offerings. Excellent.
All good points.
And
so
Ruth?
It sounds like this is resonating with people. So again, this is just the goal of today's workshop was just to give you a couple little nuggets to tuck and back in your mind and bring out when it might be useful. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Paula to turn over to the next person.
Okay, and the timer just went off. So, and it looks like Ruth wrote in many job applications, it would be seen as negative not to negotiate. And I would say I've seen statistics, I don't have the exact number on the top of my head, but employers are, I think it's 84%, honestly, off the top of my head, but if I'm off by a digit, the point is most employers are expecting you to negotiate, and if you don't, it's a wasted opportunity. Okay, thanks Elizabeth for liking our nuggets and new angles. We are going to move to Alana, and I'm gonna first introduce her and then set the timer. And I'm excited to hear, especially since my mom's on the call and your talk is about relationships. So Alana is a nationally recognized certified career counselor in private practice in both New York and New Jersey. She's a licensed mental health counselor and an experienced HR leader. She's the author of What's Mom Still Got to Do With It, which I highly recommend. And I should have mentioned Karen Chopra also has an excellent book on salary negotiations. Alana is, the book that she's written is a self-help career book for women, focusing on how the mother-daughter relationship has impacted women's lives. And after reading it, I actually interviewed my mom and had a great experience. With that said, I'll turn it over to Alana. And Karen, if you could turn the PowerPoint, and I will start the timer.
Thank you so much, Paula, and really thank you for inviting me to be on the panel. It's so thrilling to be here and see the response, and thrilling to see so many of you that I know on the call. So I've been in private practice for about 30 years, and what's fascinating, when I first meet someone, I always ask the question of who are your role models? And a few observations about that women often say to me, gee, not that I don't know, I never thought about that. Why do women not even think about who our role models are, whereas men will point to a father, a brother, an uncle, someone through history. Men have actually had role models in the career world through generations and generations where women just don't see it the same way. So that's a fascinating observation. I think without a role model, and we can talk about what that is, in my HR role and through my career counseling, I see that women struggle with power, discomfort with power. How much power can I hold? How much power do I have? Difficulty navigating the career path. You know, if you don't see it, you can't be it. Literally feeling like they can't envision a future because they didn't see a woman before them reach that goal. How does work-life balance work with being a mother and having my career? And the imposter syndrome that we mentioned before. So what do we do about this? My advice is, if you don't have a role model, find one or find two or find three. But I think some of the reason we get stuck on the word is because maybe we shouldn't think just about role models. We should think about who is a person I admire. So not one person is going to fit all. There may be things we don't model. Many of our mothers have been great role models for mothering, but not necessarily career. But we can really think about who in the world you admire, and then work backwards and think, what are those qualities that I admire about these people, and how can I emulate that in my life? It's so important to be brave. You know, before we had the internet, people would say, I don't know how to find thought leaders, or I don't know how to connect. But with LinkedIn, looking around you, just finding the world is open. When I wrote my book, I really wanted to have, I had Tracy Fink is on the call. She wrote on the back of my book, a few friends who are psychologists, but I wanted a thought leader. And I reached out to the woman who wrote Chicken Soup for the Mother-Daughter Soul. She's a psychologist in Boston. And I thought, who am I to reach out to her, this famous author? But I was brave and I did it. Not only wasn't she bothered by my question, but she was so thrilled that there was a continuity of her work in my work. And I thought, you know, this is what happens. We get shy. We don't want to reach out and find other women or men to help us. And by the way, men could be unbelievable advocates for women careers. And in some industries, I think men are even better advocates for women, where women can get competitive with each other. But people are out there and wanting to help. So I really want to leave you with that one tip, which is to be brave. And every time I am brave, I am nervous, and then I'm so proud of myself that I am brave. So I leave you with that.
Thanks, Alana. And someone already wrote their vote is mom as a role model. So a few people have, feel free to share who your role model is.
Or a woman, or a quality that you admire, or how is it hard to be brave in the workplace, or how is it hard to be brave to reach out to somebody to help you?
So I'll set the timer, and gonna set it for a couple minutes because again, we keep running over a little bit, but that's okay. We got such great information. I
see Elizabeth said that her mom is fearlessness. I can't read, and her smarts. When we've had a fearless mother, we can see how it's safe to find our voices, both in the workplace. I find that so many times in the workplace when women can't find their voice, it's perhaps because they did not have that powerful that they had as a role. So I love helping people get unstuck through that piece where you can feel brave and find your voice.
Excellent. So a couple people wrote grit. Anne wrote grit. Amy said her mom's motto was, if not you, then who? Tanya said leadership and compassion and compassionate. And she gave a name, Tara Brock, who I'm not sure who that is, but I guess that's her role model. Tenacity, someone else said.
My daughter are my role models. I see that Lisa wrote that. Now, I happen to know Lisa's daughters. They're amazingly strong women. And they're strong women because she's a strong woman, right? So it goes up and down the staircase through generations, right? We pass on to our daughters. Sometimes we pass on the things we want to see more in ourselves, and then we learn from them. So it's actually beautiful that you can see the younger generation as our role models at work too. I am constantly telling the younger women at work, you drive when you're on the computer. I can own the fact that I'm better at some things, but technologically, or the things another generation brings, I'm not threatened by that. I'm going to embrace that and use them as a role model as well. I love that.
Excellent. I think we have a couple more comments, but I think we're going to jump on. Elizabeth asked a question, and I'm going to say, let's hold it till the end. Alana, the question for you, just to keep in the back of your mind, is how important is it that we find female role models? Okay. Can you keep track of that?
Yep, I'm going to keep track of that.
Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else before it scrolls away. If you can take no for an answer, you can ask for the world. I like that. I always say, what's the worst that can happen? They say no.
Right, exactly.
Someone else is recommending Alana's book, Insider Information from Karen Chopra. Okay, yes, we are all inspired by our clients. True. Okay. Vera has one comment. I think we're going to have to go back to this and jump to the next one.
All
Apologies.
Right, thank you, Paula, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So next up is Ruth, and Ruth Winden is, as I mentioned, in the UK right now and living there. She has a motto, older yet bolder. That's her motto, which inspires professionals to take well, she inspires professionals in their 50s to take a step back from their busy lives and explore what really matters to them. And clients respond to her motto, and they often forge a new path so they can contribute to society in a way that fulfills their aspirations and dreams of leading a well-balanced, meaningful life. Ruth's extensive career coaching expertise and her international background and rich life experience help clients see opportunities instead of barriers and overcome obstacles to get what they want. I'm going to ask Ruth to chime in now, and I'm going to hit the 2-minute timer.
Yeah, so good afternoon from the UK. It's almost evening time, and because we're so far ahead of you time-wise, I just came back from an event I facilitated this morning, and we had 70 women and a few men in a beautiful old library celebrating women of achievement, and that was us in the room, but it was also, you know, women of history of our region here. And what really struck me was that so many women in the room, and the women who spoke were women who were trailblazers. And so for me, it's really important as we talk about women over 50. I strongly believe we are on the rise. I strongly believe that, and I know that demographics are on our side, because we live in an aging workforce and in an aging society, at least in the West. And soon we will have more people over 50 in the workplace than under 20. So I always say demographics on our side. And most clients, to be honest, when they come to me, they do say, oh, but it's all that ageism out there, Ruth. And personally, I know, of course, that there is ageism, but I think if we give that too much focus, then I think we really stop ourselves from shining where we want to shine. And what I see all over the world is that ageism is so much more scrutinized now and legally challenged. I think a lot of employers have to be very worried about their employer brand, and they can't really get away with it anymore as they have, you know, managed to do so in the past. So there's so many good news, and I think we need to bring the energy and the positivity and the strategies to overcome ageism, but also to think, okay, what are some alternatives that we can do? And I think for me, what's really shifting is in the UK and in the US, I know and I see that there are a lot of organizations now really making a pledge and a commitment to being age friendly. And for me, that is really the top tip. If you're looking for employment when you're over 50, I think you really need to go for the low-hanging fruit. Go for the organizations that welcome workers over 50, you know, that are family friendly, that are women friendly. And they are actually making a pledge on sites like AARP in the US. You're so lucky, what an incredibly powerful advocacy you have in AARP. And go on the website and you will see lists and lists and lists of organizations committing to being age friendly and not discriminating. And in the UK, we have 3 organizations doing this. We're not as big in the UK as you are in the US, but you know, there are lots of new initiatives. Aging Better, Rest Less is actually a recruiter specializing in the over 50s. And then we have a Renegade Generation, colleagues of mine that start a new process to vet companies against their claims, how age friendly they are. And what they're really building is a mechanism to assess organizations. Do they really do what they say? So
Right.
my tip is, when I work with clients over 50, so let's not focus on ageism, because that is getting in the way. Let's see how we can make this happen, and let's go for the organizations that really welcome us, because they're the ones that makes it the easiest, and then we can build it from there. But I think there's a huge shift now coming, and I'm delighted because it's long overdue.
Thanks, Ruth. I totally agree what you're saying. You have to see if they walk the talk. And I would ask folks to type in the chat box if any of you have started your own business. I know I started my own business. I just turned 50, and I started it maybe 11 years ago. But how many of you are on the call who have chosen, no matter what your age, to be your own boss? I know my mom has been self-employed as an attorney for many, many years. And I know that a lot of folks on the call are career entrepreneurs. So let us know. Just give a yes, I did it, and type in the chat box. Yep. So Laura and Linda. Right. There's so many of us on the call. And I do agree with you, Ruth, that when you focus on the ageism, you're focusing kind of on the negative part. And really the best way around ageism is to focus on your strengths and show what you can offer. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but I've seen it work time and time again. I know you have too. Karen, right? Karen's another one. Lashish, I'm not sure if I said your name right, but congratulations. She said I did it too.
And Paula, can I just say something about the women over 50 starting their businesses? Because I know it is a big leap, it is a big step, but let's remind women over 50, how much wisdom they have, how much life experience they have, how many decisions they have made in their lives, that have, how they have overcome challenges, and these are all incredibly important things that we bring to the decision to go into business. And when you look at the statistics and all the research, it shows the business that have started over 50s have a better survival chance than the younger business. We have a different attitude towards risk. We bring that wisdom and that wealth of experience. And also we have fantastic networks most of the time, because we have been around for a long time.
Right.
We have engaged with a lot of different groups in society, and our, made friendships, and we're supportive. So for me, it's an incredibly exciting time to be over 50, and I hope that people on the call see that too. And I also know we have a lot of younger people on the call, but what, life goes so quickly when you're having fun. So prepare yourself and think, okay, if I'll be 50 in 30 years, 20 years, what can I do now to make sure I'm in a strong position? And I strongly believe it's the learning, it's the networks, it's the expertise.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. And a couple more people chimed in. Anne said she's been in 20 years. And yeah, so in the interest of time, I think I'm going to move on to the next speaker, which will be Michelle. And I think, honestly, in the interest of time, I am going to still keep the speakers to their 2-minute time frames mainly, but I think I might just have Michelle, Sherazad, and Lynn go, and then we open it up for discussion and chat on any of the topics that have been brought up, because I do want to make sure that you are able to hear some of this excellent wisdom that our panelists have to share. So with that, let me introduce Michelle Carroll, who is a nationally known certified career coach and a professional development trainer. She works with clients who are seeking clarity, confidence, and change. She loves to work with early career professionals, which I'll be honest I love working with women 40 to 60. I don't think the younger folks are quite ready for me, but Michelle does very well with the younger folks and also women in transition. As a woman, she has gone through many transitions. I think we all have. So without further ado, let me have Michelle share her wisdom about work-life balance.
Thank you, Paula. And this is so exciting to be a part of this amazing group. And speaking of transitions, I have recently moved to Florida. I've moved my business and my life here and just have really embraced this concept of wellness. And so as you see in my title, it says career wellness, the balance between your work and your life. And many of you have probably heard wellness. It's one of the buzzwords, of the last couple of years. And I'd like to build on that because I think when we look at our careers, career is life. And in our life, we need to be well. We need to be balanced. And I believe in this sort of holistic process to bring it all together. You heard Karen talk about how good we are at doing it all. Well, I think we do need to stop a minute. And so I have just a few tips for you as you think about how to balance your life and create a wellness for your whole life, not just your career and your family and your work. And the first tip is to remember to take a deep breath. And as many of you know who've studied brain science, you know that the brain needs oxygen. And so whenever you're feeling rushed, stressed, or anxious, just remember to stop and take that deep breath. Give your brain the oxygen it needs to make the choices and the decisions that are in front of you, or the negotiations, as we've learned. My next tip is to redefine selfish. When you're little, you're taught that, oh, you have to share your toys. You can't just hog all the toys. That's one of the things we learned in kindergarten. Well, I'd like to say, let's look at selfishness a little bit differently and stay true to yourself. Honor yourself, nurture yourself, give yourself the opportunity to be the best self that you can be by taking a break, giving yourself the things that you need in life to be healthy, to be happy, to be productive. And so, to thine own self be true is another one of my mottos, that if it doesn't serve me, then maybe I need to rethink it. Yeah, my next tip is to remember that you always, always, always have a choice. This is something, this always have a choice. This comes up in my coaching all the time, particularly with my young professionals, because they come out of college and they get into the workforce and they feel like they have to do everything that their boss tells them. They've got to make the numbers. They've got to show up. They've got to answer the phone on the weekends. You know, they've got to constantly be on. And I just want to say stop, because you always have a choice. Either you take the choice, control of the choice, or someone else will. And in thinking about choice, there's always going to be consequences. And so I don't want you to think that you just can make any choice you want and there's no ripple effect or no consequences. But I like to have the consequences that come as a result of my choice and not as a result of your choice or somebody else's choice. So remember that your choices have consequences and you get to choose what they are and make the best choice for yourself. Honor yourself. And as you think about this, my last tip is never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life.
Excellent, thank you. And Elizabeth just commented that she wants a new word for selfish and self-absorbed because they feel so negative. So she's saying, what about selfie? Although I think these days that has a different meaning. Self-esque. I like that, self-esque or self-respecting. I like that, and Deborah likes that too. So I think we'll go with self-respecting. I think that's the winner. As I mentioned, I'm going to move on to Sherazad and Lynn just to make sure that they are able to share their wisdom as well. And then we'll open it up to any topic, any question that we talked about. Sherazad, welcome. I just saw you yesterday, so it's great to see you again. And mute yourself if I think that's what's happening. Okay. Sherazad is a holistic career counselor, trainer, and author of Nourish Your Career, which is also an excellent book that I've read. And my mom's pesto recipe is actually in it. Sherazad loves and specializes in working with people and organizations that have social good focus. And I know that she does walk the talk in what she, not only does she love to serve people who work for social good, but she also does a lot of social good in her life. With that, I will turn it over to Sherazad to share her wisdom about nourishing, which a previous panelist had mentioned. And Sherazad will elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you, Paula. I'm going to start my timer too, just to keep myself accountable as well. Thank you so much for having all of us and creating this opportunity. Thanks to everyone for being here. What I want to talk about is really making career decisions from a place of strength, power, possibilities, and options. And for most of us, that usually requires a mindset shift and a different perspective. So being willing and aware that we need to create a different perspective, or just saying, what else can this particular situation mean? How else can it be interpreted? One of the first places to start with that is to really start with yourself, your own goals. What matters to you? What is your goal? What are you trying to do and why? That's extremely important, and it should guide everything else rather than having it externally determining what it is you're trying to do or what you think you should be doing. So as you make decisions, also always remember that you have valuable skills and qualities that you're contributing. That's again another piece that goes to that starting from a place of strength versus feeling like, oh, I have to prove, or someone else has to prove that I have value or agree that I have value. So always start with that mindset of, I am offering something of value, and how do I move that forward, and what's the difference I want to make with that? Having an attitude of curiosity, openness, and the curiosity is about not being necessarily certain, oh yes, this is how it is, or this is the situation, but just asking questions. I wonder what else that could mean. I wonder what other options potentially could be created, or I could create, not just that they exist, but how can I create different options? And that goes actually to, as Karen was talking about, creating different options and negotiating. It's a very similar idea. It's that you don't have to settle for just what's there. What can you create? Be aware, really aware, that you have options and the ability always to choose. So for example, if you're trying to decide whether or not to stay at an organization, you could choose to leave. That's a choice you have, whether or not you make, or that's always an option. But whether or not you choose to take that based on your values, your other factors, your decisions, and what serves you well would be the thing to think about. And then finally, you do not have to do this alone. So all of us rely on each other. So all of us on the panel support each other, for example, and invite and graciously accept the support of others. And especially, of course, certainly a wonderful woman in your lives, but anyone who supports you and lifts you up. Allow them to be able to help you, to move you forward, hear you out when you're having a bad day or doubting yourself. So it's not that you have to feel all of these things yourself, but you can allow others to help you remember that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherazad. And you were within the time limit, so
thank you.
Thank you. And I was just responding to a chat because someone had asked if we could share our Twitter addresses. So just as a quick point, on the last slide, all of our contact information and social media handles are there. But Sherazad, I want to actually make one comment because you were speaking, so you couldn't have seen it. But Elizabeth Sanders said that you are so lovely and offering your profound advice, and she thanks you for consistently showing up and showing her what strength looks like. And I would have to agree with her.
Thank you both. That means a lot coming from both of you. Thank you. She
said, strength looks like when it is quiet, lovely, gentle, deep you. You inspire me every time I see you.
Thank you. Same here, Elizabeth.
Thought I'd pass that along.
Thank you.
There were some other great comments. I would ask the audience in the chat box if you might share what is something that does nourish you in your career.
Perfect.
I know for myself, supportive colleagues, like some of the wonderful women on the panel today and some of the women in the audience have been great, nourishing aspects of my career. Someone just said connection with other professional women is so important, and I totally agree. A couple other, let me just quickly scroll. Yeah, mostly everyone's really loving what you have to say.
Well, thank you.
Someone said this is what's nourishing her career, and that's,
good.
Thank you, Sarah. What were you going to say, Sherazad?
No, I was just going to say I'm seeing a theme of having others, colleagues especially, and other women in our lives, whether or not they're colleagues, but colleagues in particular coming up as a theme as to what nourishes their career. So thank you for that. I'm delighted to hear that.
Yeah, and Diane said gratitude, which I would also agree. That is very nourishing in life and career. A program like this one. Thanks, Linda. Excellent. It seems like we're resonating with folks. I don't want to leave Lynn short, so we do have one more expert we want to hear from, Lynn Carroll. And Lynn is a career coach in the Philadelphia area with a focus on women in STEM, people of color, LGBTQ job seekers, and introverts. And she is also a career advisor for graduate students at Temple's University Fox School of Business. And so without further ado, I'm going to let her wrap up the panel with her advice on networking. And as an introvert who's sharing about networking, I think some of her tips will especially resonate with introverts, but I think her advice is true no matter what your personality style is. So let me let her talk more.
Thank you so much, Paula. And thanks so much for all your comments. I've just been reading them and letting them wash over me. It's been terrific. This has been a wonderful community tip that we've made today. My focus is particularly for those who believe that they hate networking. And I used to say that I hated networking as well. When people would say, do you like to network? And I would say, oh, it's the worst. But I've decided that I like to network in my own way, in a way that feels authentic for me. So here are some tips that I use to help myself, and I thought they might be helpful for you as well. I try, whenever possible, to have 80% of my networking focus on helping other people. If 80% of my networking efforts focus on helping others rather than myself, rather than furthering my own goals, I find that I actually enjoy the networking more because it's coming from a place of genuine generosity. And I also find that it's more helpful. I find that the networking that I do is a little bit more effective and productive. I do this by thanking others sincerely and thanking them often. I will be spending an awful lot of thank you notes to the people involved in this chat and in this video today. And I also do that by trying to offer resources, events, information, and opportunities as often as I can with people in my network. If I see a grant opportunity for someone who might be able to apply for a grant, I make a point to reach out to the person in my network that would be interested in that and share it with them. By doing that, I am using this strategy to keep my network strong and to keep the people in my network feeling like they have heard from me really frequently. But instead of frequent reminders that I have something to sell or a question that I am asking for their help with, I am frequently offering something. I'm offering an opportunity that I think that would be helpful for them. I am all over social media, but my most frequently used platform is Twitter. And what I try to do is have 80% of the things that I share on Twitter and other social media platforms to be highlighting other people, highlighting their work, highlighting their expertise, and sharing something that someone else has contributed that is helpful to me. Finally, I just try really hard to spread kindness every day. If a day goes by and I haven't had an opportunity to lift someone else up as I'm climbing myself, then I feel as if I haven't done my job. So if you try these types of strategies, you'll find that networking is fun and rewarding and terrific. So there's my personal timer. And I just want to say thank you to everyone so much. This has been really fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you have anything, did you cut yourself off, or was there a last thought you wanted to get out?
Nope, that is it. Okay. Thank you.
Well, Lynn, some people are introducing themselves to you in the chat, which you'll probably see now that you're not talking. Alexandra is at the University of Delaware. She says, hooray, ladies of STEM. And Elizabeth wrote in and said that your work is new to her, but it's a pleasure to be connected. And I know both of you, and I'm sure you'll get along well. I do want to say that Lynn doesn't just, she walks the talk. She is very generous, and she's been generous in this effort, this team effort, but also if it weren't for her excellent networking, we probably wouldn't know each other because we would run in the same circles, but she took the initiative to actually reach out, and that was maybe a year or two ago, and we've had a lot of collaborative efforts since then. So, okay, and Anne is saying, I agree, women network very differently. It is 12:57. We said it would be an hour webinar, so we do want to honor your time, but for the last 3 minutes, I would say feel free to ask questions in the chat box. We'll get to as many as we can. I have a feeling we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But lots of the chats are just comments reaffirming what others are saying. Someone said friend self. I think it might have been Elizabeth, or someone else was trying to come up with another word for selfish. I like friend self. So maybe by next year we'll have come up with a good word for that. Helen said she really liked Lynn's idea of suggesting grants to colleagues, and recently found an unusual research grant and recommended it to a friend who really appreciated it. And there was another comment, I'm going to scroll just a little bit back. There was a comment actually for Ruth about ageism, and someone was saying, it was also Helen, that she really appreciates working with women over 50 because they have so much wisdom and perspective. And a colleague she's working with just suggested that she do a second master's in parallel with her job. Now, I will caveat my advice, which is look into it and make sure you really need that second master's before you invest all that time and money. But if your employer is willing to contribute to it and it's something that's going to work for you, go for it. There was also a question way back when. At first there was times on the chats and I had marked it to go back at 12:33, and now the times went away. But let me just look real quickly because it was for you, Alana. It was someone, oh, it was, do you remember the question? It was, why is it important to have women in your, as...
Yes, is it important to have women?
Yeah.
I do think that, like I said, it's important to have men and women in your corner, but it is good for women to be able to see themselves out there and being brave. It helps in the bravery. So I think that here's our contact information, by the way, and people did ask if we'll be sharing this the slide deck. We will find a way to get it for you. But I do think it is important to find role models out there, and having women in your life that can inspire you helps you believe that it can be you. And I think that's the most important takeaway, that we all can do. We all can do this, and it's the belief in ourselves. My clients ask me, what's the difference between someone who makes it and someone who doesn't? And it's the belief that we can do it. And I think by seeing other women who have done it, it makes us think that we can too. I never thought I'd run a marathon, and I think that that's the message, we can.
Yeah, your sound was cutting out a little bit, but what you said is you thought you'd never run a marathon, and you did. So,
or finish a book.
Or finish a book, which I hope to be able to say by this time next year.
And
that my book is published.
If you mind to it, you can do it.
All right.
Excellent.
Can I just, this came in privately on my chat, so somebody said to me, this has been great, and do you think you could do like more webinars like this with a deeper dive on these topics instead of just the little nuggets that we've offered today? So I would say we would love to do that, and I think Lynn, who is our tech guru, can tell us if we can keep this list and at least make sure you all get an invitation if we manage to put together a series of individual webinars to dive deeper into these topics, because I'm with all of you. It's been great listening to all of this today.
It has been fun, and but I feel like I know all of us could talk for hours upon hours. I could just talk for hours on LinkedIn, much less careers. But anyway, it has been wonderful, and thank you so much for the awesome response. I'm sorry we didn't get to any questions, but I think this was a good experiment to see that there is an appetite for these topics, and there is a lot of enthusiasm around them. And so, believe me, all these comments in today's hour will inspire us to try to figure out another way to reach all of you and beyond with these wonderful nuggets of advice and wisdom. And I just want to wrap it up because it is 1:02. So we'll wrap it up just momentarily. And I first want to just thank everyone on the panel. You have been such an awesome team to work with. And thank you for following me into this unknown territory. Thanks to everyone in the audience, including my mom, who this is her first Zoom event. So she was brave and took a chance on the technology. It really was a very collaborative effort, and everyone on this panel, really, I appreciate all the time that you put in and the energy. And it was really interesting how we all had different areas of expertise, and everyone shared their resources and their expertise and knowledge, and we got it done. So thank you, everyone on the panel. Also, of course, thanks to everyone in the audience, the men, the women, the people from around the world. That we feel the love, and thank you for being here. As you can see on this last slide, this is all our contact information. We will send a copy of the recording along with this PowerPoint slide deck as a PDF. And so Lynn has access to the list, and we can get that all to you. I'm not going to promise that we're going to do it today because it might take a little coordination among us, but I will promise that by Monday you will get it. How's that? And then I also plan to put it on my website. On my website, I have a resource tab, which has some other videos, including a few from last year when Ruth and I did something similar. I guess it was 2 years ago. So it will at least live on my website. I imagine that it might also live on the websites of some of the panelists. But at the very least, you will have your own copy sent to you. I think that's it. I think without further ado, I'm going to say, Karen, if you could turn off the recording at this point, that would be great. And thanks to everyone who in their comments has said thank you and good luck. And I would say good luck to all of you on your career journey as you move forward.